So hi there, welcome to video 6 of the Mossie. Now I'm putting myself under a little bit of pressure now. I want this to be the start of the second half. If I can get this done in 10 videos, that gives me a nice clean break for Christmas. So what I'm going to attempt to do is go back over stages 11 to 21, and then hopefully, barring a couple of little bits, we will have a finished assembled model, and then hopefully in the next issue we can go into priming and painting. We'll do the decals in issue 8, we'll do some weathering on stage 9, and then we can have a good old look at it on episode 10. So let's see how I get on. Okay, so a couple of things before I start. I've done just a couple of little tiny things off stream. First thing I've done is I've removed the silver bits that go across there, and I've carefully labelled them. F for front and an arrow pointing to the front, M for the middle one with an arrow pointing to the front, and an R with an arrow which is the rear one and pointing towards the front. The reason I've taken them off is I'm going to be weathering this, and I just think that's going to get in the way. The next thing that I've done off camera is I've given these a second and third coat of paint. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you guys, some of these could have done with a clean up. I did notice one that had a bit of a seam line. Must be this one. Do you know what? Maybe there we are. There's a little bit of a seam line there. I'm actually not going to do anything about it because they're going to sit like that, and that's all you're going to see of them. Once they're in, they'll sit something like that, so I'm really not going to worry about them too much. I've still got the rails on the sprue. For stage 12 they'll all be going on. 13, 14 we're not doing because I'm not doing the pilots. Now 14 I did miss a bit out, and that's this piece there, which is J18, but that just needs to be painted black, so next time the black comes round, that will get done. The next bit is the Bombay doors, and I want to do this before I paint them, and I have started it. Because seeing me cutting is going to be quite boring, so I think I'm about halfway through cutting, and very brand new blade. That blade was in there about an hour ago, and there's a really nice line down the middle. I don't know if you can see it. You'll see 3 lines. One is part of the panel line for this Bombay door, one is the panel line for this one, and it's that one in the middle. Now all I'm doing is I'm taking the line and I'm just pressing gently, and I'm starting about 1/3 of the way down, then about 2/3 of the way down. I'm doing it again, coming all the way down. You'll see a little tiny bit of plastic come out so we know we're cutting. And then I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way down, and it's going to be a slow process, and then, well, and I say 2/3 of the way up, I mean just over, so there will be an overlap. And once you've got your first line in, the knife is actually going to follow that line. It's not too bad. So and I'm just alternating, and I think I've done about 6 passes so far. Oh, that was a relief. I thought I came out of the channel. Okay, and then the next one, and I can feel that I'm getting very close now, because this is starting to bend in the middle. I don't want to bend it. I don't want to risk damage to the line. Now the reason I'm doing this now rather than after painting is because it's going to need repainting afterwards, because that line that we're going to expose. Now I can't remember if I've gone this way last or the other way, but it doesn't really matter, just so long as your knife blade gets in that line. And don't do it quickly, because the quicker you do it, the more chance you're going to have of coming out of the line. Now some of you might be saying use a steel ruler, whatever, that's fine, you can do that. But I found that once you've got the little line in there to start with, once you start running your knife in there a couple of times, that line is actually getting a little bit deeper. So the more lines you cut in, the deeper it gets, the easier it is. But also, we're just not, the amount of pressure I'm using is just a little bit more than the weight of the knife. As you can see, it's taking a lot of passes, but I'd rather take a long time. That is almost there. But just make sure you've got a brand new blade. I don't care when you put the last blade in, change it. This is actually something that I don't do enough. Now I think I've cut through all the way in the middle, which is probably about right, because I think where I'm doing one way than the other, I think I'm doing more passes in the middle, so I am expecting that to give in the middle first. I don't know, I've not counted the passes. But each time I pass, you can see there's a little tiny bit of plastic coming out, so I know I'm making progress. Now, could you use a razor saw on this? Possibly. I just think with that little line that they've moulded into it, I think it's just going to be easier and quick. Well, not quicker, but if you've got the patience, I think this might be the best way to do it. Yeah, that Bombay door is just giving a little bit. Can you see? I know I'm very, very close. So I am going to just bend it outwards just ever so slightly. Not enough to break it, but it will make that channel a little bit bigger. Tiny bit more flexible. So now that that channel is a bit bigger, I'm gonna say I'm pressing harder, but I'm still not really pressing that hard. Because it's flexible, I can kind of rest one end on my finger and then hold it down with my 2 fingers. That's encouraging it to open up a little bit, but you don't want to force it, because if you force it, you're going to risk damaging the plastic around the edges. So I'm pretty much scribing. Oh, that's almost ready to go. Yeah, I'm in effect, I'm scribing with an X-Acto blade. That's just about going on the end. That's gone on the end. There we go. It really wants to give up now. There we go. You see that it's so fragile there. I'm not pulling it. I'm just going to use that knife. There we go. So perfect. I'm happy with that. So what we just want to do now, just get a little bit of sandpaper. Nothing too rough. What's this? 2000. And I just want to smooth off that edge. It's just, it shouldn't be that rough. And the only question you're really asking there is, are you happy? There might be people looking at this and going, that was a terrible way to do it. Right, then work out. I mean, it's not that rough anyway. Lovely. So once that's complete, that's the wrong side. That's going to go on like so. Why is that too long? There you go, something like that. So there's my Bombay doors. Right, so next I want to, I've got little bits that I haven't cut off the sprue yet. The J11 door. Now this piece there, that's a transparency, and that's currently scaring the hell out of me because I've got to mask off a circle. But that can wait because that's going in from the outside. So next job I want to do is make up the propellers. Now I just want to skip forward a little bit. I've been looking at this canopy. Now normally I will mask with masking tape, and on the whole this looks quite simple. It's all straight lines and angles. There's not too many circles apart from there, but there's a little bit of detail there, and I think from the top we mask off except for that little square, and then underneath is going to be a decal, but I've kind of bottled it. So what I've done is I've bought a masking set. At the time of filming, the masking set is not with us, but having a masking set then gives me the option, do I, don't I. I can either use masking tape or I can use the masking tape or masking set. Now be careful here guys, we're going to do the propellers. There's two propellers obviously, but there's two, let me bring these two together. You can see that they are different, so I guess this is an option for different, like if they do another a rebox to do a different version, that's why that's on there, I suspect. The version that we want is E24, which is this one. So I can't find my trimmers, so I'm going to have to do a cut, guys. Okay, so trimmers successfully found. So I'm going to cut, I think I'm going to cut these long, because finding where they go, these can be cut flush, and the last piece, let me double check, I think it's this one, but I do like to double check the part numbers. E19, it is that one. So there we go. So let's do a quick dry fit, if it will allow me, not with those bits on. Right, so sometimes it's easier to cut these right short on the sprue. sometimes there's awkward angles. Now is there a right, I see. So that needs to go, there's a hole in there, there's going to be a poly cap going in there, and that's going to go on something like that. And that's not working because there's a hole. Lovely, there's a little hole there, there's a hole in there. That's why it didn't work. So that's going to glue into there, and then that's going to go over the top, and it just gets more and more beautiful at every step. Right, so I'm confident I can paint that because that's all going to be black, using the box art as the reference. Let me get the lid because the box has got sprues in. So that's all black. It's only the blue version that has blue propellers. That one's got spinners, sorry. That's got, because this, I think this is the version I'm doing, 109 Squadron, I'm sure it is. But that's got black spinners, and yeah, you can see everywhere it has black spinners. So we may as well glue that all together. The only thing that isn't black is the tips. And one thing I've noticed, I don't know if you can see it, but just on the end there's a little line, and that's where the yellow tip is going to go. So guys, I'm going to do a little bit of speeding up. So what I'm doing now is I'm just making the other one up. So we'll cut that long again. So what I'll do is I will assemble these, glue them, and do a little bit of tidy up on them. Bit of you know, all the rest of the stuff that I have to do. So next up is stage 19. So we're just going to do the rear wheels, and I think they're going to be quite simple to do. Okay, so out is coming the airbrush. What I want to do is quite a few bits I want to do, but the main bit really, I want to do some gloss varnish inside the fuselage on this panel, and most of all inside the cockpit. That will then give me a surface to do some weathering. Now the reason I'm going all the way into the cockpit is I'm actually going to be doing I'm actually going to go all the way into one side of the fuselage. I'm going to be trying this product out, and apparently it gives a completely different result on matte than it does on gloss. So I'm going to be doing the first bit of weathering here where it won't be seen, and if it all cocks up, it's really not a problem. So gloss varnish, I personally use this varnish. It works for me. It was just something I needed, some varnish, and I managed to get this, and I got it all from the same place, and it works really well for me. Now it says apply with brush or airbrush in thin layers, fast drying. It also says somewhere, I'm pretty sure it says use directly or diluted with thinners. So what I'm going to do is I will thin it just slightly. I just feel that that will give me a bit more control, and now I can't find my thinner. So let's get that well out of the way. So are we in shot? We are. So a couple of drops in there, pop some varnish in, give it a really good shake. Really good shake. Now one thing, if you've never used gloss varnish before, or varnish, it's a bit scary the first time you use it. Look at the colour of it, it's white, and it does make everything go white. And a couple more drops in there. The reason I put a couple of drops in before I put the varnish in is simply because there will be stuff stuck at the bottom. I think we can do a bit more than that, can't we? Yeah, so when you varnish with this, it will make everything go white, and it's very tempting to go, oh my god, I've ruined it, but it will clear dry. So let's have a look at that. Right, that's... So while I'm waiting for that gloss to dry, I'm just going to pop a little bit of grey primer in the airbrush, and I'm just going to prime the parts that I've just recently made. So forgot to turn the airbrush down. Sorry guys. Right, so a little bit of a light dusting. I'm using grey because two reasons. One is I'm going to be doing the propellers black, and whatever happens, I want them to have proper paint on the top. I'm just going to turn the air down. I think the air's blasting out a bit too much there. So I do want to paint them black over the primer, regardless of the colour of the primer that I use, mainly because the texture of the paint might be different. So this will quickly tell me if I've painted the propeller or not, because obviously grey isn't the final colour. And secondly, the tips are going to be done yellow. It's going to be a lot easier to paint yellow, although saying that, I might put the black on first and then get the yellow down from the black, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, because the way I quickly go from black to white is with the primer. I find the primer's got very good coverage, and then I'll go with the white that I want, or I might use a grey. It really depends on exactly what I want the yellows for. I'm happy with that. You wouldn't know I sanded that, would you? Well, you can't see well anyway, because the camera doesn't focus. So that's those done. Now if I did use a black primer, that means this piece would be done. So I am making slightly extra work for myself by priming grey, but I'd rather have the extra work and get a nice result. So let's just see if that needs. That was supposed to be a dusting, but I think I did blast that a bit. That's okay. Right, happy with the result. So yeah. Okay, so it's time to try something brand new. So I'm going to confess, the only research I've been able to find on this light wash is from Ultimate Products themselves. They released a video about 9 years ago, and they were going on about their entire range, and it looks like their whole, I mean, it's mainly set up for armour. I mean, they do cement and tanks and wet mud, but light dirt just looks perfect for doing some panel lines. So what I'm going to do is give it a really good shake. This settles very, very quickly, and one thing that I remember Paul saying, Paul's the guy who does Ultimate Products, he says decant it into a pot. Oops. Don't dip your brush. Oops, that's way too, I've come from too little to way too much. I'll tell you what, I will pour some of that back before I use it. He says don't dip your brush into the pot, because obviously what you're going to do is you're going to put any... I'm not having a good day, am I, with this? Bear with me a sec, guys. So my apologies, I've just had a little spillage slightly off camera, as you can see. So I want to get that sorted out quickly. Right, so this is non-toxic and it's clay based, and what I've done here, I've done an M on there and a G. That just tells me what the back bit is. So all we're going to do is, I don't know how light or how dark to put this on. Actually it's quite thin. This is the first time I've ever used this, guys. So that is light dirt, isn't it? So that looks perfect. So what we'll do is we'll paint this all over. I'll try and get it nice and even. I've seen people go heavy with washers. I'm going to try not to go too heavy. The theory that I have here is that obviously most of this I'm going to be rubbing off, but if it goes a little bit thin, I can always apply a second layer, possibly. But yeah, this is basically, I'm experimenting here, aren't I? So there we go. So that's, but actually it wouldn't look awful if you left it like it is. I don't think. Remember that I'm not doing these to be weathered, I'm doing these as museum pieces. So I want them to be looked after, but obviously it's not going to look fresh out of the factory. That's the look I don't want. The museum is lucky enough to have got this particular model, this particular aircraft, and they tried to tidy it up a bit, but it's not gonna be gleaming. I will do this bit, even though it's the other bit I'm interested in experimenting. So this will take about 20 minutes to dry, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I really don't know, but we'll know when it's dry, because it'll go matte. So this one I'm going to be a little bit more careful and a little bit selective with, because I'm not going to be able to get into all of the nooks and crannies. To clean it off again. Unfortunately this came a little bit too late to try and experiment. Something I learnt new was applying cling film onto seats, and it gives it a bit more texture. Unfortunately this cockpit had already been done when I learnt that, so maybe the next model, do you know what, I think that's looking nice just as it is. I don't think that's going to take an awful lot to clean that off, and I think this might just be exactly what I'm after. But I'm really keen to see the difference between applying it on matte and applying it on gloss, because apparently gloss, it will clean off a lot easier, so you'll get a slightly cleaner look than you would with oh, missed a bit there. Right, I mean, it might be I needed dark dirt, but if this gives me a good result, then I think I might have found a weathering product range that really works for me. Okay, all I can do now is wait for that to dry. Okay, so I'm still waiting for that to dry. It's mostly dry now, but what I'm going to do is I'll just get on with a little bit of black painting while I'm waiting. I'm a poet and I don't know it. So I'm going to be using straight up AK110219 black. I suppose I should mask off. No, I'm not going to mask off it. I think it's going to be easy if I do the whole lot black. I'm talking about the propellers, by the way. trying to get the air and the paint right. Okay, so I think this wash is completely dry. It's been left for quite a while. As you can see, it doesn't look awful as it is. We just want to just sort of uniform it a little bit. So I'm going to do this bit first. This is the matte side. And what we need to do is use a damp cloth. Now let me demonstrate this first. I deliberately painted some on the table, and basically because it's clay based, that's why it goes like that. And if I rub it, actually it comes off quite well. But if you just, this is going to end up wet, but if you make it damp, you can see that you can then rub more off. So the idea is to get this damp so that we can rub some of it off, but not all of it. And the way I'm going to do that is the large areas. Now the way I do a damp cloth is I wet a cloth and then I push another cloth onto it, and then we can push this onto there, and that just dampens it. And all we're going to do, hopefully, is we'll just give that a light rub, and you can see that that's just already starting to just wipe that a little bit. Now because of the nature of this, when we get to any crevices, it's going to leave it behind in the recesses. Now, it's going to take some work, I will admit. Now the large areas I'm using cloth, the smaller areas I'm going to use a cotton bud. And I think this might be a little bit light, but it's certainly done something for the fuselage, hasn't it? So now we're on to the gloss bit, and the gloss bit is certainly easier to remove. Now when you're doing outside, they say to go in the flow of wind direction. Obviously there's not really an awful lot of wind going on in here, so I'm just kind of going round and round. I'll be honest with you, I think this is going to be too subtle. But it's okay, it does add something to it. So let's continue with cotton buds. Now unfortunately when we finish this, we are going to have to wait for it to dry again. It'll probably take, I guess, about the same amount of time. Do you know what? I'm actually okay with that. Perhaps it would have been better with the dark dirt, but actually I'm okay. I like that. So I've left bits of muck. You might argue there's a bit too much there. The inside not so great, but I have been able to emphasize these coloured bits. Yeah, and I think they're okay. I'm happy enough with that. Right, so what the next stage is then is we need to assemble this bomb rack, and let's find our little bits. And the first thing I'm going to do is pop in these little silver bits, put those back in. I didn't really want those weathered so much, that's why I took them out. And I mean a lot of this is going to get hidden up with the bombs, so they'll just go straight back in there like so. That one goes on there. So I don't think you need to see me do this in real time, so I'll do a little edit and then we'll do those in speeded up. So a couple of things. First thing, I was just about to start doing a bit more recording, and I noticed that the button had been pressed. So I pressed the stop record button while I was recording. So the bit that we've missed is, let me get this undone now because I've put it all together. So I have glued in the silver parts that I took out earlier. I've then popped in that little black bar for the bomb rack, and then I've glued the bombs in. Looking at the bombs, I think I'm just going to give them another quick thin coat of the green just to even it up a bit, but that's looking spectacular now. So what I then did is I printed off the copy of the instruction. I should have done this right at the start. This is for me to scribble on, and then what I like to do is go through every single bit, mark off all the bits that I put in, and then I noticed something that I forgot, and that's this E16, 2 E16s to put in. So I've done this one, I haven't glued it in, but it's just that simple little piece there. There we go, simple as that. It needs a little bit of a clean up. So I'm going to do the second one. Now this first one didn't have a hole in the engine bit, so I just took a 1mm drill, I drilled a hole, and this one's going to go in the same way. Probably best to use tweezers, but it just slips in like that, and it's going to glue up against there like that. And the glue up obviously is going to be ever so simple. I'm just going to pop a little bit of thin in there, extra thin, sorry. Just hold that for a second, and if anyone can tell me what that is, that would be fantastic, but that's probably not even going to be seen. So even if I lost those pieces, I don't think it would have been the end of the world. So same with this one, there is a bit of cleanup, but I think I'm going to do that cleanup when I do all the cleanup on the wing, because this bit needs to be done anyway. So yeah, that's the bit that I've missed out. So this is why it's good to mark off things with a highlighter. So I've managed to get in, I thought that looked a bit funny, so I've managed to get these in, these little supports. This back bit was an absolute pain. I actually had to cut a little bit off the end, and it was an absolute pest. Once I got it in, I'm like, right, I've got it in, so I glued it in there and then. So that's drying at the moment. I've done a little line-up test, and I think I've got them in perfect. I know you can't see that because of the focus, but they're just about lined up. The main connection points of these doors are going to be those holes, and then we'll sort the rest out. So the next bit that we want to put in, that's stage 11 finished now. So we are now on to stage 15, which is getting close to closing up the cockpit. So I need to make sure I've got everything. This is one of the bits that I missed out, and we've got this little bit with a square bit. It makes little sense to me. I guess it's got something to do with cameras, although if you do one of the other versions, you're going to replace those bombs with a camera. Now I was worried about lining up those pegs, but as you will see, there are no pegs on this side to line up, which I think is good engineering. So yeah, that needs to be put in, and then we are super close to closing up the fuselage. So what I'm going to do is just pop a couple of dabs of normal thick Tamiya just on those pegs, slip that into the holes, and the only other worry I've got there is it's a little bit gappy there. I presume it's meant to be, but I mean it's all going to be dark in there once it's all closed up. So stage 15, I need to double check that I've done everything, because once I've glued this fuselage together, it is then too late. So I have cut the hole there. I know I've done all these greebly bits. Done that back bit, done that bit. I think that's ready to close up. Right, so danger time. This bit goes in very nicely, but as I've mentioned before, let me pull this out, being careful not to catch those. So we have a ridge there, which is where the back of our cockpit goes. Now when you pop this in, it's really strange. I don't understand how it does this. The bottom lines up perfectly, but the top wants to come the other side. If you don't match that properly, it will not close the fuselage. So you've got to force that there onto the other side and then give it a push, and it's got a little bit of a click. The other thing I noticed with the dry fitting is it's a little tiny bit gappy in the bomb bay. Whether that's because I haven't done the fuselage yet. Now you'll know when it fits properly, because you'll be able to do that with, I mean, it's going to try and pop open, but top lined up, bottom goes. Now having said that, that's now gone in perfectly. So what I'm going to do, oh, the other test as well that I noticed, you've got these little tabs there and you've got holes on the wings. What's going to happen is the wing is going to go on there, and then there will be a piece goes in there with a little what do you call it, a tab, and that will close that up. That will never come off. If you put the wings on correctly, can you see there that that hole is pretty much near perfect? That one, you can just see it's closed a little bit of the hole up. That means the fuselage isn't in quite properly. Once it's in, it's a bit better, but it's not quite there. Now I don't think we're going to get that fully done until we've actually glued the fuselage, but at least we know we're practically there. So we've got this in, so let's slap a load of extra thin in there. From the back, it shouldn't affect anything, but that's nicely glued in. And then we'll look for any, be careful, I keep catching these little bits there. So there's another little bit we can glue in along there, and that won't be seen from there. And there's a little touch there that I can put in, and I just want to push that down a little bit. There we go. Now this I'm going to have to glue from the outside, but if it does wreck the paintwork, at least I can just touch it up with a brush. So that's obviously where at least the pilot, yeah, where they'll both get in. So I guess from that the pilot has to get in first, because if the navigator gets in first, there's no room left for the pilot. Right, so I'm happy with that. Now I'm just gonna, oh, see, that's coming off. That is not really going to be safe until those bomb bay doors are glued on. Now that is nice. That I'm happy with. Very happy. That's gone together better than the dry fits, so long as you get the tabs in correctly. So let's do a dry fit with the wings. Wrong way. This is the one that's gone in no problems. That's great. And This is the one we had a bit of trouble with. I'm wondering whether to just put the pegs in now. But don't glue them in. Just use, there we go. That's much better. That is much better. I think we should do that. Not glue them in. But yeah, no, it's really beginning to look like a Spitfire. Oh, why did I say that? It's really beginning to look like a Mosquito now. And do you know what? I've been handling this model for quite a while, and I'm still shocked at the size of it. You think World War II, you think smaller aircraft, you think modern aircraft, you think bigger. Now, this is an unfinished F-14. Obviously I've not got the wings on, and this is the Mosquito. It's not that much difference in size, is there? I mean, obviously the F-14 is bigger, but we know that the F-14 is a beast. Now this is a Sky Raider. Now this apparently can carry more weaponry than the B-17, and it's so much smaller. So the size of this Mosquito is absolutely amazing, and every time I look at it I'm like, wow, that's really big. Anyway, this isn't getting the model done, so I think we are ready to glue up this fuselage. So I'm just going to push all the bits together. I have got some cleanup to go, such as there, but I'm going to save all of that till after it's glued. Oh, I want to just test this back wheel. I'm going to ask the stupid question, can I put the tail wheel in after I put the fuselage together? I suspect I can, and yes I can. So I want to keep that off as long as I can. Anything that sticks out is going to be a danger. And the next thing I want to just have a look at are these Bombay doors. I'm really worried that they're not going to line up properly. I think there will be a little bit of manipulation involved and a bit of gluing, but we'll worry about that because these have got some flexibility because they're thin plastic. Obviously I haven't painted the ends. Right, there's a little bit of cleanup required there, I think. Yeah, just that one bit, and then it's done enough to be able to glue it. So we are going to be needing masking tape. I don't think pegs can really help much, but let's get that, yeah, let's get that bit cleaned up. Doesn't need an awful lot, but I think there's just enough to interfere slightly. Just where I've cut it off the sprue. It's really interesting how just a tiny little bit like that can actually have a big effect on the fuselage. Right, shall we do it, guys? Shall we glue it together? Right, I'm going to do a quick cut. I'm going to get things ready. I'll see you in a moment. Righto, here we go then. So the fuselage is almost together. I've got me extra thin ready. I've got my normal Tamiya, and just in case I'm going to need it, I've got my quick drying ready. So I've got a bit of masking tape here because I think I can mask that without going over the glue. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this end and then this end and then just work it in the middle. So here goes the bit I've been waiting for. Okay, so that has now been glued. That was very hard work, I don't mind admitting. These little pieces keep bending all over the place. So at one point one did fall out, the front one, which I've managed to get back in. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if it's not in properly, if it's not fitting properly. But it's just so easy to knock out. I've probably knocked it out. Maybe I should have glued this in a lot earlier and then left it. But it's in now. I mean, I'm not doing any more to it. So I found it easier to tape the fuselage together as I glued it, which is what I've done. The wings went on with a little bit of trouble, but once this little panel went in, it was all good. So I can now officially upgrade this to the stand. So this is something I got off, there's a YouTuber, I cannot even remember what his name was, and I feel a bit terrible for that, because you know me, if I find a really good product, I like to tell everyone about it. But I think you could probably Google this anyway. Yeah, that's going on to the stand now. I think that wants to come in a bit more. So what I'll do is I'll leave it there. This has had a bit of trouble with it. The bomb rack started coming out, but I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to touch this for at least probably a week now. So yeah, that's I've got to put these on. I did put these on as a dry fit. I don't normally get excited about things like propellers, but look at that for an amazing fit. Isn't that just perfect? And everything about this, I mean, I know I'm biased because it's a Mosquito. If you know, obviously when they design an aeroplane, they're more concerned about the performance over what it looks like. You know, if an aeroplane does its job, does it really matter if it's the ugliest thing in the world? But this isn't. It's just everything but ugly. It's just absolutely amazing. Anyway, yeah, so right guys, this is it then for this video. Thank you very much if you've watched this long. I really appreciate it. Next week, what we're going to do, probably going to be a much simpler job. We're going to prime it. Obviously we're going to mask the bits we don't want to touch. We'll prime it, and then we'll try and give it a paint job, and then probably gloss coat it next week. Next video, ready for the decals, and then I'm hoping the decals will get done in a couple of weeks, a couple of videos, then the weathering, and then hopefully that'll then be finished. So take care guys, I'll see you in another video.